So this area right here is kind of a perfect example of one of my personal favorite setups for turkey hunting. There's a big ridge point behind us, and the ridge point rolls off down into this hardwood drainage, and this is actually kind of a thermal hub right here next to us. And gobblers like to get in spots like this because they can see far down through that thermal hub. They can gobble off this knob down into that hub, and you know, you can just think about how that gobble is going to project down through those valleys and carry down through those valleys, especially on a day like today where it's a little bit windy. And not only that, but he can be seen from up here. So he can walk back and forth, and he can strut and do his thing and be seen by any hens that might be across the way, you know, down in the valley, down on the other ridge side. And so they tend to just kind of float around in areas like this. They like getting in spots like this, and you know, he might be really fired up and like gobbling a lot early in the morning, and eventually he might kind of drift off the side of this thing and start getting down into the bottom. And when I hear one gobble in a spot like this, I like to get up on the point above them and basically just set up where that military crest is like 35 yards from me. So the military crest is where the ridge basically rolls off and you can't see down the ridge anymore. So when you're looking down the side of a ridge, eventually there's a part where it rolls off and you can't see any further down. And I like to set up where that's like 35 yards from me. And what that does is when he walks off the edge and he's hanging out somewhere down here, and I start making some hen sounds up here, I'm clucking or yelping or scratching, whatever I'm doing, when he comes to check that out, he's gonna walk up. It's a very natural situation for him because he's been gobbling here all morning. He's wanting the hens to come to him, and now he hears a hen up above him. It's very natural for him to be like, oh, there's a hen. And he just turns around and has to walk just a little bit up this hill, and then by the time that head pops out, he's 35 yards, he's in range. So this has been a super effective setup for me turkey hunting, not only because the turkeys like to hang out in areas like this, but also because it's a good setup for me as a hunter, and I can, you know, get up there and close the deal on one. Now, number one mistake a lot of people make, especially newer turkey hunters in a situation like this, is they want to set up pretty much where I'm sitting right now, where you can see, I can see that whole other hillside, I can see down in the bottom, and they set up in a spot just like this, and they're basically calling right off the edge of this thing. But when you do that, all he has to do to put eyes on the hen is walk across to the other side and hang up and sit there and strut back and forth for 20 minutes. And that's how you get a hung up gobbler in an area like this. So in order to remedy that, you've got to restrict your sight, and you've got to get up over the hill where you can't see as far, because if you can't see him, he can't see you. So use that terrain to your advantage where he's got to come up here and check you out. So just know, if you can see him all the way over there, he can see you. Maybe he doesn't see you, maybe you're well camouflaged, but he can see where the hen should be, so he's not going to walk up here. So that's why this is one of my favorite places to turkey hunt. And you know, it's good to get out and scout these things ahead of time and kind of know where they're at, so you can make effective moves on them when you actually have a gobbling turkey in the area. Now we're just over the lip of the hill in the spot I would actually set up in, and I just wanted to show this in a little bit more detail because it took me a long time as a newer turkey hunter to figure this out, because when you set up in a spot like this, it seems like everything is like right in your face and you can't see anything. But that's the point, because again, if he's down there in that bottom, or he's on the other side, or even if he's on this particular point and he's just further down, if you want him to come up here to you, then you've got to be out of sight. And a lot of times, if you're going to ease up and you're going to break that military crest, a lot of times you're going to scare the turkey. And a lot of times, this happened to me so many times, where I had a gobbling turkey in this area just like this, and I go keep inching up until I'm over that military crest, and all of a sudden he quits gobbling, and I'm not getting responses, and he never shows up. Well, he probably saw me at some point poke up over, and I probably didn't see him. You know, he probably saw me and just slipped out of there. Right here, I mean, my furthest shot's probably just over 20 yards. So I would maybe even back up a little bit more and just really prioritize cover. And I kind of like this particular tree because I've got some other big trees and saplings right in front of me that aren't so close that I'm going to hit him with my gun barrel, but they're close enough where if he comes up a little bit further to the left than I thought, I've got this tree that I can use as cover, and I can kind of look around, and I can, you know, move my gun just a little bit if I need to, and I'm just tucked away back here, and I'm not right there on the foreground. So when you set up like this, you have to be very, very cognizant of your cover, because a lot of times they're going to periscope, and that head's going to pop up, and it's like whack-a-mole, and you got to get them quick because they're scanning hard. You know, they're looking for that hen turkey, so you got to be very, very well hidden. So one more view of the same situation. Now we're down in a thermal hub. There's a ridge point back here behind us, and just to drive home the point, this is like a very natural place for a turkey to be hanging out. They'll be walking on these streams, you know, eating the grass and like little green sprouts coming up, maybe scratching for whatever acorns are left. And this is the kind of spot where you're going to find turkeys kind of hanging out. And if there's a turkey down in an area like this, or maybe he's up the hill, or maybe he's just floating around, and you get on that hillside back there and you break that military crest, and you're sitting up there on the lip of that hill, which is where most people want to sit, if the turkey's standing here, he can look up and he can see exactly where that hen yelp came from. And he's not going to see a hen. So there's no reason for him to walk up there, because he's like, well, she must have left, or I don't know what goes through their head. But if they can see where that noise came from, he's not going to go up. Now, if he hears the hen calling from over the top of that hill, that's a much more natural thing for a turkey to do. He's like, oh, okay, you know, she's up on the other side, she's just over that lip, and he can go walking up and check it out. And pitch off this hill if he feels danger or anything like that. So it's just very natural for them to do it. But again, standing down here in the bottom, you can look up and see that whole hillside. So there's no need for you to walk up there, you know, if you're a turkey. Setting up where you can't see the bottom is a big key. It's a big help.